you wanted to bring something up before we got into anything. You wanted to ask some questions?
Yeah. So like, just like tens of thousands of other people, I've watched your Dark Side Phil interview and was completely fascinated by it. And I think the most entertaining aspect of watching that interview was seeing Adam slowly lose his cool over the course of like 5 hours. And it reminds me of like the OG Timcast days where like, Adam would just have this bullshit alarm, or I don't know if I can curse, like BS alarm kind of go off.
Yeah, you can
like,
curse.
Say whatever you want
to people. And you could just see his eyes light up at certain points when Phil was kind of like throwing down like nonsense, like left and right. And the moment I realized, because I don't really follow Phil all that much, but like I know of him, and he's one of those guys whose reputation kind of precedes him. And I always kind of felt sorry for the guy because I'd heard about like his bankruptcy and he's being persecuted and all this stuff tangentially. I actually had a exchange with It's a Gundam about it at one point because he was just being like super hard on Phil, and I was like, hey, maybe you should like lighten up on this guy. It sounds like he's going through a tough time. He's like, no, screw Phil. You don't know the half of like his depravity. And the minute that Phil said that he didn't really know who Gundam was after you played like that little voice message, I was like, okay, everything he just said was like a complete lie. And I was just wondering, like, when you guys were like on the stream talking to him, like especially like you, Adam, it's like at what point did the switch flip and be like, okay, this guy's just completely full of BS. Everything he's telling us is a lie, and we need to call him out on it.
When did I realize it? I kind of went into the interview thinking that might be the case. So I was already on the side of, I don't trust you. I'm going to listen to I'm going to take what you say with a grain of salt, but I'm going to listen to what you're saying. Give him the honest try to listen. So I really was sitting there listening the whole time. I honestly, I was trying to do that the entire time, but it wasn't until Keem came on and DSP tried to explain to Keem why he didn't trust Keem. There was a moment where I was like, you're using your own detractors' arguments as like the reason you don't like this guy. Like, that's it. I've had enough. Like, dude, you're it's all bullshit. Like, you can't try to convince me that your detractors make all these lies and then say that you watch Keem's detractors and suddenly like, that's okay. Those aren't lies. I already, because I was already on edge. I was already like, I don't really trust you. I'm going to go in kind of on this edge of, I want to poke holes in whatever argument that you bring. And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt still, even through that. Right. So I was in this like weird middle ground of, I'm going to try to listen to you. I'm going to try to give you a chance. And hey, if you bring some facts, if you actually prove that this shit isn't real, because I've seen a lot of shit, then okay, cool, right? I'm open to the idea of my mind being changed, which most people should be, right? I wasn't stuck on that side, but that's the side I started on. And
well, you weren't even familiar with DSP before he came on the show, right?
I had never heard of him before. Craig had said, had said, hey, we're going to have DSP on the show. And everyone was like, oh, no way. And I'm like, who the fuck is DSP? And why is everyone having this reaction? And oh my God, what is Craig getting me into, And I just kind of, I don't know. I did a little bit of research. I watched some videos and talked to a few people that were like, oh boy, you're in for a treat, And so I kind of was like, oh God, this is going to be exhausting. And it certainly was exhausting.
The funny thing about that was I went in, the first question that I asked in the interview was, people have said I shouldn't interview you. And I probably had, no joke, probably 6 people reach out and be like, I don't know, man, this is not good. This is not a good idea. Tread lightly. You should not do this. This is not a good idea. And I was like, well, we committed, so we're going to go for it. And in our little chat that we have every day, on Twitter between DMs and stuff, there was like a lot of talk of like, oh shit, we're going to go through the fire for this thing. And similar to with Adam went in with a different mindset than I did, where my mindset was, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and have him prove me, have him like the innocent until proven guilty type thing. And because I'm a big believer in that. I think you should have, you should be innocent until guilty. But just over the course of the 5 hours for me personally, it was like it was so blatantly obvious that it was like, I can't even believe he's just trying to shovel this shit in our mouths. And I could see watching the archive and pulling clips for it. There were several times where if there was an off button for Adam and you just hit it and he just like powers down and just became so mentally drained from all the nonsense he was hearing. It was crazy. So,
well, what's funny about DSP is that, he comes off like in a vacuum, very sincere. Like if you're just listening to like him alone and he's like explaining his side of the story, you're like, okay, yeah, I could see sympathizing with the guy. But the minute you started kind of like really like zeroing in on like specific things and you saw him kind of like dance around it and double talk it and stuff like that, it became very obvious that like, he was being very insincere. One of the most interesting parts of the interview, for me at least, was about like, well, so let me kind of just put this to the panel because we're all like YouTubers. We do a lot of live streaming. I know Adam's pretty much on doing like shows like constantly throughout the day. And it's like when you stream as much as Phil does, right? And he says that he's playing a character. He's playing Dark Side Phil. I come from Hollywood. I studied acting and directing and stuff like that. And trained method actors can like go into a character for like, 24 hours. They can inhabit that character for like a period of time, but they always kind of like, have like mental issues when they come out of the character, right? Because it's like you're basically changing your personality. So with someone who streams like 8 hours a day, 15 hours a day, every single day, if you're playing a character, you either become that character or you're just streaming so much that you reveal who you actually are and you try to pass it off like you're playing a character. And I don't think Phil, like no offense to the guy, but I don't think he's a skilled enough actor to pretend to be someone he's not for as long as he is on live streaming. So the idea that he's talking about like, oh, I'm not racist, I got a stupid sense of humor, I did stupid things and all this other stuff, like to me it feels like there's more evidence out there of who he really is based off of his previous live streams than what he was presenting on his interview. Now maybe he's trying to change, which is a good thing, but it just feels like we all know who Phil is based off of like his previous live streams. Do you guys believe that it's possible to inhabit a character every day, like 8 hours, 15 hours a day?
No, 100% no.
Okay.
No, agreed. No. Craig asked him, who is DSP and who is Phil? Like what's the difference? And he did not give an answer at all. He did this roundabout. Honestly, with all of his answers were these like roundabout. I don't really want to answer that, so I'm going to give you this other thing. I mean, 75% of the time, he just started talking about his detractors and the lies that are out there. It wasn't actually saying, all right, DSP is this and Phil is this. I think being a character sounds exhausting. I love being who I am. I'm a sarcastic wise ass, and when I'm allowed to be me on shows, I thrive. I have such a good time doing that, especially when I'm around a group of people that dish it out as much as they can take it. Especially like side scrollers. Like I love it here because it's so much fun. I get to make fun of these guys. They make fun of me, and we have a great time. He seems unable to make fun of himself or take criticism at all because
puppies.
Because I guess the puppies are back.
Oh, hold on. Am I not muted?
No.
We heard
now
that. Available.
I will say go ahead.
Before we move on, I was just wondering if you guys had watched any of like Phil's like responses. I know he had a particularly pointed response towards Adam where he basically just started, slagging on Adam on his own live stream.
Yeah,
based off of like Adam's like take on the interview, which I think was pretty accurate.
So I did. He called Adam an asshole at one point, and I was like, "Time to go." I left.
Yeah, I can be an asshole. I openly admit it. I haven't seen it, no, but I've been told that he's got some dirt on like me and Craig's dark history that could land us in jail. I said this before, and I'll say it again. By all means, DSP, please make that video. That would be fucking hilarious. I want to see what he knows. It's like,
Right.
cool, man. All right.
And
Have fun.
he just so happened to find it on both of you too. You know,
Right.
whatever it
Yeah.
may be.
Like, okay,
After
dude.
the interview too, not beforehand.
Like,
You okay, buddy?
it's like I've not watched a single second of it. I have been like the detractors. They tweet everything at us. Did you see this? And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I don't watch the clips of it. But yeah, apparently we've got dirt. There's dirt on these guys. Like that I was like a business owner and that I had to fire people. And like it's insane.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
feel like
watched
you
a
guys
couple.
gave DSP like content for the next 6 months.
I gave him the
right.
idea. The detractor reactor. Like, bro, use it by all means. That I said you should do that. Own it and make that a thing because you clearly need something that is going to level you up because you love being where you're at and you need to level up somehow. Keem said it to him right. I mean, it was kind of brutal, but it was truth.
Well, the part where he said flat out that he didn't know who It's a Gundam is.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, you've interacted with this guy before. You totally know who he is.
Yeah,
course he
didn't
does.
he
You've
say
seen
he was
videos.
on
You've
the
responded to
radio
his
or
videos.
something?
Yeah, you complained he was like stalking you, and you don't know who he is. Right?
Oh man, he sounds like that guy from Howard Stern.
Yeah.
Bro, that's not
As a
cool.
viewer, the part that did it for me was when he spent 20 minutes telling them he doesn't keep track of expenses. That's somebody else's job. And then he says, well, wait a minute. Here's my sheet of expenses.
Oh yeah.
But you don't keep track of expenses.
What
Wait,
was the whole like WWE controversy? I still wasn't familiar with that.
It's
like,
it's
Oh,
such a
man.
rabbit hole. Like honestly, it's just such a rabbit hole. I don't even like.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah,
It's a mess, dude.
it's a mess. It's a mess.
Well,
It's a
I
mess.
mean,
It's a mobile game that he's addicted to.
was the gist
sir.
of it that he was spending a bunch of money on this mobile game and telling people that he was broke and couldn't make rent and trying
and
to
he
get
needed
people
money
to
for
send money?
specific
Basically.
things.
Yeah,
So
basically.
that's part of it. But the mobile game, but he denies playing the mobile game. But the mobel game account is
not
his.
playing it. He plays it, but he's not addicted to it, even though he was addicted to the previous iteration of the game, and also another mobile game that he was addicted to. Fully addicted, but he's beat the addiction, and now he's playing just casually.
And that wasn't his screen name, but he didn't want to show you his screen name because somehow if he showed you, Craig, then everybody would know.
Right. The account is tied to a line account, which is tied to his phone number, which is also tied to a Discord that he owned. Like it's this insurmountable amount of evidence that anybody could look at and be like, oh yeah, that's clearly his. But he's like, nope. So anyways, so it's enough. It's crazy. And I know we're going to hear about it forever, and that's fine. I totally embrace that. And I'll gladly talk about it when everybody wants to talk about it.
You did an excellent job. The fact that it was just you, Craig, and Adam, like talking to the guy, like I think if there had been more people on the panel, it would have been too much. But just letting Phil talk and kind of like have like the new
dig his own hole.
Titan,
Yeah.
like have him do it himself. That was the most brilliant part of that interview. Is that everyone could see like the lies stack up on top of each other, and then whenever you guys would ask a question, the lies would just get bigger and bigger, and before long it became obvious it's like this guy is just full of crap, like he's not telling the truth at all. And I feel like you guys did an amazing job with that interview. So like, yeah, you're going to hear about it for a long time because it was really good.
Well, thank you. And Phil has an open invite to come on the show anytime.
Is he actually going to come back for part two?
From Craig?
From me,
Craig.
not from Adam.
To be honest, if he came back and owned up to his shit, I would still be willing to help him.
100%. By the way, on Monday, I've been slicing up the interview and posting little clips of it on online every day at 3:00 here on the channel. On Monday, for the first time, the entire post show that was on Patreon is going to be on the channel. So I'm gonna put that out there for the first time so everybody can see the entire post show. I think that'll be a real interesting watch for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I wasn't there for the post show. I had to go get some food. I don't know if you noticed. I was getting it's funny because I was getting hungry, so because I hadn't eaten dinner.
It was like
Usually,
one of those
I
Snickers commercials. You were turning it into Tim Pool, you know.
You're
Well,
not.
and-
You're not you
and,
when you're
and
hungry.
imagine trying to deal with Tim Pool while you're hungry, and it's like, oh god, you know. And DSP is significantly worse. So, but I don't really want to dwell on DSP. But we did start mentioning before the show started today. I asked. I was talking. Craig called me the best gamer in the room, and I was like, well, we got Mark the Cyborg here. I know he's a real gamer.